Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ask the Unfaithful. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know me, but you also probably know my great buddy, James. James, how are you today?
I'm great, Sam. Looking forward to doing this with you. Good to see you. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm filled with excitement because we've got a lot of things that we're going to announce today that we're both pretty ecstatic about. So, the first off is you have a special announcement about a new launch. So, why don't you tell everybody about the new launch that's coming their way?
So, this has been in the works for a while. Sharon and one of our coaches, Ray Emerson, have filmed the first few Ask the Betrayed. So, I'm really excited about getting that going. We'll let you know when it's coming, and it's going to be fantastic.
It really is because we know many of you betrayed watch our episodes, and we know lots of unfaithful watch as well. But this is going to be another medium to focus on the betrayed partner's journey. It's going to be much like this medium, but talking about the ups and downs, the struggles. Why does the betrayed think the way they do or do what they do? And it's going to be just a fantastic opportunity for you betrayeds, male and female, to walk down this road of realizing you're not crazy and you're not the only one. And what you're feeling and what you're experiencing is 1,000% normal. Right, James?
It is, and it's going to be really great because both Ray and Sharon, of course, are betrayed partners. So they've been through this, they've been successful in their recovery, and they're both really experienced professionals. So it's going to be really amazing. I've had the privilege, of course, of previewing things since I do the production work, and they're just fantastic. They do it a little differently than we do, which is great because we do it the way we do it. So they're doing it in a way that's going to be really appealing to betrayed partners listening, and they're going to learn a whole lot, and it's going to help them a whole lot, which is the purpose of doing this.
Excellent. And I think it's going to be really great for you betrayeds to just not feel so alone and to normalize what you're going through. Now, we've got another announcement that's going to be a special gift today. And James, tell them about a special gift that you decided to offer all of the listeners and viewers.
I was thinking, how can we help our listeners and viewers more? And so, what I did for this one is I created a workbook that is free and downloadable. It really allows you to go through this, listen to it, and then sit with the workbook and kind of work through some of those ideas and some of the things that you hear in this as they apply to you. We wanted to really get that going to see if it was something that was helpful. And I think it will be. Obviously, we're going to be looking for feedback from people when they download it because that's going to be helpful for us to look at what we presented, if it's helpful, if it needs to be expanded or changed in some way that would be more helpful. We love feedback and we adapt to that feedback, believe it or not. For those people out there listening, we do actually listen and adapt. So we're really excited to get that out there, and we'll see if it's something that's useful, we'll do more.
And workbooks are so helpful because it's so great to have something tangible that you can go through, that you can study, that you can fill in the blank and really process through. So it's going to be a wonderful gift. And at the end, we'll tell you how to get that. Now, today's question that we're discussing is going to be really helpful for you betrayed when you understand the mind of the unfaithful. And I guarantee you that you unfaithful have probably struggled with fear before, during, hopefully not after your recovery work, but definitely before and definitely during. And today's question is, why are unfaithful so afraid to do recovery work? James, you and I talked about how essential it is that the unfaithful face their fear. So, why don't you start off by talking just a little bit about what you also called emotional inhibition?
Yeah, so I think that's where that fear is rooted, right? I know when I first got into this, I knew that I didn't have a choice because of where I was. I had a serious bottom and had to go, okay, either I do this or my soul's going to die. I mean, I really was at that place. And then I had a ton of fear that went with it. And that really came from feeling all these emotions about it, but not knowing what to do with those. So, as usual, I tamped them down. It begins really, that emotional inhibition begins as a form of self-protection. There's a problem with that, of course. We've talked about self-protection. We talked about excessive self-protection in another podcast earlier than this. And the problem, though, is that after betrayal, that kind of emotional inhibition or self-protection can insidiously or quietly erode our ability to truly reconnect with our partner. And in fact, anybody that we love, but mostly our partners. So it's eroding that. It's really insidious how it works, because we likely carry really deep fears that if we're fully vulnerable, so if you could see who I really am, you wouldn't want to be around me. And so to
Right.
be fully vulnerable, it's only going to invite more pain, more rejection, more shame. And over time, those expectations are fear based and really rooted in older wounds. They cause us to withdraw, minimize, withhold the truths to our betrayed partners that we need to be vulnerable with in order to heal. They teach us to stay silent when honesty is what's most needed.
And fear is a two-way street. I mean, the betrayed are dealing with massive fear.
Yep.
They're dealing with fear of what's my future like? Can he or she stop acting out? Are they just going to do it again? Is once a cheater, always a cheater a true thing? And can I ever get my brain and my body back after this tumultuous experience every single day of my life?
I mean, you're talking about the things that stop us up from really embracing real healing. And that real healing, both for us unfaithfuls and for our betrayed partners, really requires something entirely different than what we've ever done. Part of that is that we recognize our own fears and shame, which goes into the fears, of course, because we don't want to feel the shame. That's heavy, it's painful. And how do those fears and shame inhibit our emotional openness? We've got to be able to recognize how they do it and how they limit our courage that we need to challenge those fears, which are really internal barriers. How to risk emotional openness so that we can actually offer our partners the genuine honesty and presence that they deserve.
And emotional openness, you know, let the viewer and listener understand you're not going to hear from us that you betrayed need to just snap into emotional openness. Not at all. We understand that. But you, unfaithful, without, and this is a brave but true statement, without emotional openness, your marriage or relationship is going to remain in disarray until you can learn how to practice emotional openness. So, what are some basics to understanding how they can overcome this fear?
So I think, and we're going to do this today, a lot of it. Obviously, there's going to be some practice stuff that unfaithfuls are going to have to do to really get used to this and get better at it. Like, this has been existing for long before betrayal or discovery. It's been existing for a long, long time. So this isn't any small thing to say, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. What I think is vital is understanding what our emotional inhibitions are, what expectations we have of the fears that we have. So let me explain that really quickly. When we build a fear, we have these expectations that if this happens, that's going to happen. That's rarely true. And it may be based on one experience when we were a teenager, an adolescent, a young kid, middle adult. We just experienced that once. And then that goes into our survival brain as, oh boy, that's scary, not going to do that again. So that's the expectation, or the fear expectation. And we also then have to understand how we can act bravely or courageously despite that fear, with additional principles of responsibility, positive thinking, not in a toxic way, but in a, okay, if I do this, this actually could be the positive result we could get from that. And then taking conscious action. This is what I am knowingly going to do about it. Because action, I mean, that's where we heal, right? We can think about it. Remember, way back, we talked about getting stuck in the plan. And we are talking way back in one of the podcasts. We can get stuck in, oh, here's this great plan, but never start it. So that conscious action is what makes the difference. I do want to say that a lot of this comes from some work by Susan Jeffers, which was her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. She's sadly long passed, but what a brilliant book. And then Colin Tipping has written a couple of books and is really popular. And he works on self expression, expectations, laying down our fears in order to realize ourselves more. So just credit to them for some of the stuff we're going to present here.
Facing yourself can be really terrifying for an unfaithful, and it's something that is a natural reaction to potential failure, rejection, loss, a sense of not enoughness. A lot of times, we as unfaithful come into a situation already thinking, it's not going to work. It's not going to be enough. He or she's just going to be mad anyway. Part of that is just a normal fear, but there's something else about fear, right?
We have to look at it as fear is not the enemy. If we think about pain, so let's say that, I don't know, we sprain our ankle, right? Now we've got pain. It tells us something though. It says, okay, don't put pressure on this foot. It says, take care of what you need to take care of to help it heal. So fear is kind of like the alarm clock in the morning. It's going to wake you up and then you have to take action. What does the alarm clock do? It says, get up, get out of bed, get moving. If we can start seeing fear as just a cue or a signifier that there's work to be done, and it's really pretty clear about what it wants us to do because that's what we most want to avoid. So if we can identify that, okay, I'm scared, which first we have to admit, right? I'm scared. Okay, what of? Well, expressing what I'm feeling right now or doing this betrayal recovery, that it's just not the enemy. It's actually telling us what we most need to do because the actual enemy is I'm going to suppress or avoid the thing that I'm afraid of. And what that's going to do is then deepen my shame and create more distance with my partner.
So when you understand the concept of shame, it's oftentimes that shame is underlying our fear of being exposed, and it can actually make us feel this feeling that it is unbearable to reveal the full truth or to show emotional openness. Shame tells us that it's not that we made a mistake, but that we are one giant mistake. Fear loves to be moved by shame because our underlying idea is if they knew everything about me, they would disown me, they would run the other way. And as long as you are conditionally known, you're going to be conditionally loved. And so that's why you need someone who's an expert that can help you learn how to talk through and how to be vulnerable or emotionally open. But when you have betrayed someone you love, shame becomes a powerful internal voice that says, no, no, no. If they know everything, they're going to leave you high and dry. It causes us to hide, to avoid, and it causes us to distort. But I think you'll agree, James, that healing begins by recognizing that shame absolutely thrives in secrecy, but starts to dissolve in honest, compassionate self expression with guided hands. Because just throwing up all over your spouse does not at any level set each other free. It actually complicates things. So, learning how to do it under the help of a therapist or a coach that knows what they're doing, just like you talked about Ask the Betrayed coming out, it's people who've been betrayed who get it, who understand it. So, as we start to get into more of the weeds, talk about the fear, the expectation, and just the overall inhibition we feel.
Well, it's a human experience. Fear, it's been happening since the dawn of man. We've been feeling fear, and we feel it whenever we're approaching something that's unknown. And so often it gets really, really big because of what we don't know. And then most of the time, when we actually do that thing, oh, well, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. So, one of the things to really look at here is if everyone feels fear when approaching something new, yet so many are able to move forward, fear then isn't the real problem. So in betrayal recovery, unfaithful partners, us unfaithful, often expect a ton of emotional pain when confronting hard truths. There's some truth to that. Yes, it's going to be painful. It is not going to kill us. It may feel like it's going to. Some of those things can be, well, now I fear hurting my partner even more, or if I share this, I'm going to be judged really harshly. And
Yeah.
the shame that you were talking about so beautifully amplifies those fears. It kind of whispers in our ears. It says, oh, facing the truth is going to confirm your worst fears about yourself, and then everybody's going to know.
And then we use self protection strategies, minimizing, withholding, deflecting, excusing. And then we just create more damage. And you say it this way: what feels like protection to us unfaithful feels like another betrayal to the partner. It's definitely a re traumatization for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And guess what? If we're in our right place, our right thinking, we don't want to do that anymore. And so there's that other fear of, well, what if I say something that hurts my partner? What level is hurt? What level is harm? This is one of the reasons why it's really good to have somebody who's been there, who knows what they're talking about to help you decide or discern what that is. There's a key insight here that Jeffers makes that fear isn't a psychological problem, it's merely an educational one. So the more we know, the lower the fear. I was talking about fear being an alarm, sort of like your alarm clock. What is it signaling? It signals a need to learn, not a reason to retreat in this case. Obviously, if there's a lion in the room, you might want to retreat, but this is not a lion. Our brains can react that way, as we've talked about in the past. Really, though, if we can say, wait a minute, what's to learn here? And one of the things that we're learning is that inhibitions, emotional inhibitions, arise out of outdated pain expectations. So, what I was talking before, oh, wow, that really hurt. Well, when was that? I can look back at stuff and say, well, I was in boarding school in England. That really hurt when we were in a pillow fight and we got caned for it. Not only did that hurt physically, but man, we were afraid to have any kind of fun because we didn't know when we were going to get in trouble. So what did we do? We tamped everything down. Life became fearful. But I look back now, who's going to cane me now? Right.
Yeah.
And I know that's a very extreme thing, but I've got to look at that and go, well, that was then. This is now. What can I really expect here? And so, if those expectations of pain are based on discouragement of emotional expression in my early life, so maybe not pillow fighting, but I tried to share that I was sad and I got told, shut up before I give you something to cry about, or something like that, right? Okay.
Right.
Well, now I'm afraid to express myself emotionally because I'm going to get stomped on or have more to cry about.
And I can hear that at some level, as a betrayed, you might be listening or watching, going, well, wait a minute, though. So we're supposed to just coddle these dudes or these women who've cheated on us? We're just supposed to coddle them and be afraid of their fear? Absolutely not. We're not saying that. Today's podcast, as you can gather, is really about explaining what's going on in unfaithful who are afraid. And so at the end of the day, fear, and I think you'll agree with me, fear in our life as unfaithful blocks healing. As long as we are tolerating fear, it's going to create massive blockage to healing the relationship and our own life. Am I right?
Yeah, it's absolutely stultifying. It's what keeps so many people stuck, even outside of what we're talking about with unfaithful and betrayal. People just stay stuck. They stay blind to the realities of what's going on for them, and they prefer to stay in that place. And so people here listening and watching this have no choice. I mean, you could go back to what you were doing, but that isn't why you're listening to this. So we're trying to offer hope here that these things can be overcome. You talked about betrayed partners thinking, oh, well, what, I've got to coddle him or her. No, you don't. No, what we're talking about here is we're helping unfaithfuls understand what's happening so that they can do something about it, which we are going to get to. As an example, an unfaithful might delay confessing or doing a disclosure, the full truth, because he or she feels like their partner might never recover if they know everything. The fact is, the research and experience show the exact opposite. But by not sharing, it creates uncertainty for both partners. And what happens there is you've got a betrayed who's going to keep feeling betrayed and won't know how to reestablish their own ground. And you have an unfaithful who's staying stuck in the pain of their past and how they might be judged versus if they are able to work on moving forward into honest communication. Another example could be avoiding a conversation about boundaries because I'm afraid it'll just cause another fight. But the lack of clear boundaries creates instability and suspicion internally. They need to get cleared up. There are times when people will, oh man, our anniversary of discovery is coming up. I'm not going to mention it. I'm just going to hope we just get through that. Guess what? You actually bring it up, it helps repair. You got to get over that fear to be able to say, I know this day is coming up, and I just want you to know that I'm thinking about it, and I'm here. I'm willing to sit with you and process and do the things that are necessary for us to get through that, or for you to get through that. That is big because it's proactive. It's saying, here's the fear, but I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do. And it's going to be more helpful. Withholding your grief or guilt, because if I show how upset I am about what I've done, my partner's going to think it's manipulation. I know I used that kind of thing in my past as manipulation. If we're truthful about it, though, then it's not manipulation. And even if it's taken that way, we have to learn how to be able to express those things. Because if we're not true to ourselves, then we can't be true to the relationship.
And with that comes a really big problem. The expectation of pain, more pain, often unreasonable and maybe even outdated from our previous times of life in childhood or young adulthood, really inhibit self expression, vulnerability, emotional openness. And if you're going to inhibit those things, you're going to inhibit relational repair of any kind. Because again, shame convinces you that if you take a risk, it's just going to fall apart and it's going to result in another dumpster fire. But the reality is that healing requires honesty, not perfection. It's about progress, not perfection. And there should be progress. If your unfaithful is not showing any progress, there's a problem. If you are sitting back just wondering and hoping and wishing that there was any progress at all in the life of your unfaithful, that's a problem. Unfaithful, if you don't have any progress, we got a big problem. We got a big problem that we've got to get after. So, James, you have some thoughts. 5 truths about fear. What's the first truth?
Growth always comes with fear, unless we choose not to face it. So if you're uncomfortable, you're probably on the right path.
Truth
That's
number
number
2.
one. Waiting for fear to go away before acting, because that means you're actually staying stuck. So action actually dissipates fear. Inaction solidifies it.
Truth number 3.
Pushing through the fear is less painful than paralysis. Regret and stagnation cause deeper wounds than facing a hard conversation. And I do want to say here, remember that regret is actually a regret against yourself. It's actually shame-based. Remorse, on the other hand, is about your partner. So when, oh, I regret that, if we're stuck in that, we're mired. We're not connecting, we're disconnected. If we're remorseful, that is actually connective.
It's beautiful. This is my favorite one. Truth number 4.
Acting in the face of fear builds genuine self-esteem. Courage, basically, when we are brave, it compounds. So small, brave acts actually compound into larger ones or a larger one that actually transforms identity.
I had a mentor say this to me very early on, and I was telling him about how afraid I was. And he goes, let me ask you something. Can you do it afraid? And he just stared at me. And I was like, no one's ever asked me to do it afraid besides Little League. And he said, can you do it afraid? I said, I feel like I have to, right? Because I need to do this stuff. And he said, you do. But ask yourself, can you do it afraid? Just asking me that question helped me so much. What's truth number five?
You're not alone. Everyone struggles with fear and shame. It's a universal human experience. It's not a personal defect.
Because ultimately, we have to move from pain to a sense of empowerment, right? There has to be a point where we move from just being in pain to actually gaining momentum, taking action so that our betrayeds feel like, hey, maybe they're getting it. And so that we can look at ourselves and go, I'm actually gaining ground. I actually have some forward progress.
Let's look at this. Emotional pain. It can be from being stuck, it can be from not knowing what to do. That creates anxiety. And if we don't do anything, it'll create depression. That is what it actually ends up being is avoidance, helplessness, paralysis. You feel trapped and then you feel resentful. Empowerment, on the other hand, is choice, it's energy, it's action. Even choosing to admit fear is a step toward empowerment. It's a courageous act in a sense. Every act of courageous self expression. So, what is self expression? It doesn't mean that you're suddenly an artist, right? Yes, that's self expression, but really expressing myself, expressing what's going on for me emotionally, no matter how small, moves me from pain to empowerment. Telling the truth, as an example, about a small thing strengthens your ability to tell truth about big things.
So then there's another action that we can take, which is using positive, empowering language to actually reprogram our brain, right? Shifting from, I can't handle this, this is too tough, to, you know what, I can do this. If we come from faith, they call it confession or what have you. If you don't come from faith, it's just using affirmation to say, I can do this, I will do this. I'm going to be able to do this. I'm stronger than this. You know what? This is not too difficult for me. I can encourage myself. I can motivate myself.
Yeah, an example could be I can't tell my partner the truth. And instead, say, I won't hide anymore. The fact is that language shapes our internal beliefs, belief systems, even. When we hear ourselves, believe it or not, when we talk, our brain hears us. So everything negative we say, oh, I can't do that, your brain's going to believe it. So when we actually start saying, you know what, I can do this, I can handle this, I can move forward. I'm not saying it's going to be fun or easy. It's going to be hard. That's okay. Usually, if it's hard, it means you're on the right path. When we do these things, when we act courageously, when we express ourselves, when we move out of that shame into expression or fear into expression or fear into empowerment, self empowerment, there's a healing impact of that. And when we empower ourselves through honesty, it actually weakens the grip of pain and it rebuilds our betrayed partner's ability to feel emotionally safe and rebuild trust. So if you're asking, how can I help my partner? This is how.
And here's where we get into some real concrete tools to overcome fear. So, you unfaithful, here's some things that you can do to actually build up a sense of courage and maybe even do it afraid.
As with anything, baby steps, Bob, baby steps. We got to start with low stakes vulnerability, things that aren't massive. If you try something massive and you fall flat, you're not going to want to do it again. So if you practice with something like admitting, hey, I'm scared to say this before a hard conversation, then that's going to help you build some momentum, build some strength in being more and more vulnerable over time. If you practice affirmations daily, and I know, oh, there he goes with that hippie granola stuff again. Look, it's been proven, right? It's been studied neurologically. It actually changes the brain, which is what we're trying to do here. So if you practice affirmations daily, I can handle whatever comes. I am enough to be able to do this. So those affirmations actually reprogram your inner narrative about fear and shame. Remember, your brain is listening. If you use no lose decision thinking, then that's going to be a huge win. So if you think about it this way, either I can heal the relationship or I can heal myself, rather than either I can heal the relationship or nothing gets healed. Oh, in this situation, I can work to heal the relationship or I can work to heal myself. Let me tell you, if you're doing something to heal yourself, you are doing something to heal the relationship. But that isn't to the exclusion of not working on the relationship. We don't do one-way streets here.
Right. And
Uh,
every act of truth telling is a win for their own integrity, right?
Absolutely. Every act. Even you know what I did, and Sharon likes to talk about this because she loves stories. I did this thing where she said, "Did you take the trash out?" And I said, "Yeah, I took the trash out." She was in the kitchen. She looked in the trash. I hadn't taken it out. What? So all I had to really do was learn to say, "Yeah, I forgot to take the trash out. I'll do it right now." Isn't that silly? That's how much I used to lie because of my fear of being in trouble. Well, it got me in a whole lot more because I lied about taking it out when it was so obvious. So every little thing that I tell the truth about, my integrity is built. Journaling, a lot of people go, I don't want to journal. Look, journaling is basically you write, scratch some things down. Literally, it can be a few bullet points. Just scratch it, right? So scratch down some daily victories in your self-expression. Hey, I told the truth about this. Or, you know what? I was able to stick for longer than I have with a difficult conversation. So you're focusing then on the effort, not on the outcome. And the outcome is impossible because if you're looking for this should be the result and it isn't, everything that came before that now doesn't count or must have been wrong. If you're focusing on, I put in the maximum effort that I could in this, it didn't yield the outcome, but I can go back and we can have a conversation. I can learn from that. You focus on, I put in that effort, that's going to give you more impetus to put in that kind of effort in the future. If you are based on the outcome, you're not going to want to put in the effort.
Oftentimes, when you visualize yourself facing a conversation that's hard and actually succeeding at it, navigating it, right? Mental rehearsal builds emotional resilience. And I think what any betrayed wants is a man or a woman who's been unfaithful who can learn how to be emotionally resilient. Would you agree?
I do. What it does is when we do that, when those negative expectations we have don't materialize, it actually reinforces new beliefs that vulnerability can lead to connection, not just pain. Hey, if you don't believe that mental rehearsal builds emotional resilience, there was a Rutgers basketball study in the 80s because the government paid for a lot of stuff back then. So they studied a team that practiced, physically practiced. They then had another team. They're all of about the same level, mentally practice. And then they had another team that didn't do any practice. As you might expect, the team that practiced physically did win when they all played each other. The team, interestingly, that practiced mentally consistently beat the other team and scored more points on the team that practiced than was expected. So, mental rehearsal, mental preparation does work. With that, let's bring in this conscious behavior practice. So, this is really a practice of how can I consciously change things. We tend as unfaithfuls to criticize our betrayed partners, or we complain, in my case, a lot back then. So see if you can go 1 week without criticizing your betrayed partner or complaining about anything. If that's too long, try it for a day. Actually, you'll be really surprised how hard that is just for a day. The thing is, when we're conscious about it, oh, wow, it wakes us up to how often I do that. So if I'm practicing that non criticism, it's going to actually result in creating a more emotionally safe environment, which actually is going to promote healing for both partners.
And every risk that we take as unfaithful towards honesty and even emotional resilience and I would add non-criticism towards our partner helps dissolve this shame barrier between us and our betrayed, and it creates a sense of emotional openness, emotional presence, and overall safety. So, what are a couple of things that the unfaithful can start to do right now?
One is reflection. Think about, what is one fear driven inhibition that I'm ready to challenge today? Just one. Something that I'm reluctant to do because I'm scared of what it might produce. If I'm ready to challenge that, and remember, keep it small to begin with, and go ahead and do it. So the action could be share one vulnerable truth with your betrayed partner this week. Not perfectly, but courageously.
Do it afraid. Do it
Mhm.
afraid. Do it afraid and turn off the self-fulfilling prophecy voice that's in the background that just says it's going to go bad. You know it's going to go bad. It's just going to go bad. Why am I even doing it? Well, you know what? Try it. And if it goes bad, say, so what? It went bad. At least I tried and I did it courageously. Because fear is not an enemy, right? You said that earlier.
Yeah. Look, it's just that alarm clock. It's just there to remind you, oh, okay, that could be painful and you need to work through it. That's all it is. That could be painful and you need to work through it. Just like I like to say resistance. But what is fear if it's not resistance? It really shows you're growing. That's all. People go, oh, all anxiety is bad, but it's not. There's bad anxiety about worrying about stuff you can't do anything about, but there's the good anxiety that comes with growth. Of course, you're going to
Yeah.
feel anxious because you haven't walked that path before.
And facing yourself honestly is an act of love towards your partner and towards yourself because true intimacy requires emotional exposure or vulnerability,
Yeah. So, you know what? Don't wait until the fear disappears. Walk through it because the fear is really not going to disappear on its own.
right?
Walk through it. Saying yes to growth, to emotional risk, to vulnerability is the miracle antidote to fear, shame, and missed opportunities.
And I can't stress enough to you, unfaithful, the only way that you're going to be able to gain ground with your betrayed is your own healthy self-sacrifice, sacrifice of ego, sacrifice of your own self-image, sacrifice of you being in charge of what recovery looks like, which is your pride. We talked early on the front end about a workbook. So how can they download the workbook and get access to it?
I'm going to put a link in the description underneath the video. There's a description of what the video is that you write because you're really good at that. And so that'll be there, or you'll be able to go to asktheunfaithful.com and there will be a page there that is for downloads. I'm going to also put some of the previous downloads that we've offered on there so people can just go there, be in a PDF form.
That's great. And as usual, it's really important that you understand that whoever you're getting help from needs to have gone through infidelity and understands the components associated with it. Every day, James and I hear stories of people who sought out someone who said they were an expert, but within a session or two, man, they realized, this is not going the way that we saw it going. So if you want to pursue an intensive, maybe you want to do an intensive for yourself or you want to do an intensive as a couple, you can reach out to James at hopeforus.com. If you have questions for myself or James or any way that we can help, or if you even have topic suggestions, you can reach out to us at asktheunfaithful@gmail.com. As always, we will see you next time on Ask the Unfaithful.